Hello, I'm Dale Yurton, and welcome to our study on sowing the seed. Sowing the seed. This is actually a series of lessons on stewardship, how we're able to take the gifts that God has given to us and to make a profit with our lives. The lesson today I'm entitling The Power of Investment. Knowing how to take the resources that God has put within our hands, that are within our power, to be productive, to make our lives really count for something. I'd like to begin with a question. It's a good question. I want you to think about this. Are sinners smarter than saints? Now that's more than just a rhetorical question. I bring this up because of something that Jesus said. He actually, I'm paraphrasing it, but he actually says that very thing. And so I want to answer that with 6 different points today. Here's the first point: debt. There's an amazing story in the Bible of a man that used debt to his advantage. He was wise in the way that he was able to handle it. Now, this goes back to one of those stories that I think it's probably one of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible. And that's saying a lot. You'll find this in the book of Luke, where a business manager is falsely accused. Now, listen to those words closely. Falsely accused of wasting his master's goods. And so I want to read the story just in case you're not familiar with it. It's found in the book of Luke, the 16th chapter, verses 1 through 9. There was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward." Then the steward said within himself, "What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses." So he called every one of his master's debtors to him and said to the first, "How much do you owe my master?" And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, "Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" And so he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, "Take your bill and write 80. And so the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourself by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home." Wow, what a story. Jesus was a master at telling stories, and this is one that I think is probably, people have more difficulty with this story understanding what Jesus was saying than just about any of the stories that he told. Now, here's some points that I want to make concerning it. As a steward, you have to understand a steward is managing someone else's property. And as stewards, we will give an account to God for the management of his resources, the resources that he has given to us, our time, our talent, our treasures. And so this is where the man is. He's in a difficult situation, and he says, "What am I going to do?" This is what I will call point number 2, the dilemma. The dilemma. How is he going to handle this? What's the solution to his problem? This manager, we'll use that term because I think stewardship is probably not as easily to understand. The manager that had lost his job wasn't physically able to do manual labor. That's what he meant when he said, "I cannot dig." In other words, I can't dig ditches. I'm not physically able to do that. And then he said, I'm ashamed to become a beggar. That's not who I am. I don't want to be a beggar. So what am I going to do in this situation? And this is what Jesus emphasizes, what the man did and what he accomplished. So what can he do? The stewardship, his management position is being taken away from him. So looking for a way to both prove his innocence and take care of his needs, he comes up with a brilliant idea. Now, it's important to recognize that. He is an innocent man. He was accused of wasting his master's goods, but he proved that was a false accusation. And yet, what is he going to do? Because he is losing his job. The idea that he comes up with is my third point. It's what I will call a discount. A discount. Now that's what he does. He discounts the bills of the men that owed him something. He makes this decision to discount the bills of the men that owed his master if they would pay immediately. In other words, he's collecting these debts that he's been falsely accused that he's wasting his master's goods. And he proves, no, these are not bad bills. I can collect them today. And the way I will collect them is by giving a discount. This is what we call a cash discount. If you will pay now, I will lower the price. It's a common business practice that's practiced all over the world, that we would rather have the cash than wait for the bigger payment later. A cash discount. And that's what he's doing when he says, take your bill and sit down and write 80 instead of 100. He's offering a cash discount if you will pay today. Now, here's the first thing I see. Point A, he proved these are not bad debts. In fact, he can collect them immediately. And the way he collected them was with a cash discount. Now, I point out, he didn't have to do this. Remember, he's being dismissed from his job. He is under no obligation to collect the debts. But by collecting the debts, he proves he is an innocent man, and yet now they owe him something. That's point number B. He had done these men a favor. It's like I talk to businessmen and I will hear them make statements like, he owes me one. What do they mean, he owes me one? They mean, I did him a favor, now he owes me a favor. That's exactly what this man is doing in this situation, and that's why his boss says, that was a smart decision. That was wise. Why? So many people misunderstand this and they think he's cheating his master. No, he's collecting what was considered to be bad debts. How did he do this? The way he was able to do it is because he understood the power of investment. The power of investment. By wisely investing in others, he is enriching himself. Now, I want you to listen carefully to this, because this is why, if we're not careful, sinners are smarter than saints. Now, this brings me to the fourth thing that I want to discuss with you. It's what I will call a declaration. A declaration. This is where Jesus begins to give us insight into the story, why he's telling us this story in the first place. He makes this startling statement that he says, in this life, or the way the scripture reads, in their generation. In this life, sinners are smarter than Christians. Now, I didn't say that. I'm quoting that. Jesus is the one that said that. Now, again, I emphasize it's in this life. He's not talking about eternity here. No, no. The sinner is not being smart when it comes to eternity because he's wasting his whole life. But when it comes to right now, sinners are smarter than Christians. I know, I can sense some of you are struggling with this statement right now. But the reason is because sinners are focused on money, many sinners understand the power of investment better than Christians. And that's why Jesus is giving us this story. It's why he is emphasizing this to us. It's so that we don't make that mistake. Now, I've got quite a few questions I'm asking today, but here's another one that will prove my point. Let me ask you the question. Is money temporary or is it eternal? What would you say? Is money temporary or is it eternal? Now, the majority of people they begin to say, well, it's temporary. And if you're just thinking about paper or plastic or metal, yes, that is temporary. But you have to remember, money has power. So the proper answer to this question, when I ask, is money temporary or is it eternal? The answer is, it depends on how we invest it, what we do with it. Because it's more than just a piece of paper, it represents something. It's more than a piece of metal, it represents a part of our life, our talents. We used our talents, we exercised our gifts, and this is what we have to show for it, money. So the answer is, it depends on how we invest it, what we do with it. Because this man is using his money wisely, or his master's money wisely, he is securing his future. Now, this brings me to my fifth point that I want to discuss with you. The fifth point is what I will use the word deceitful. Deceitful. And where I get this word is from a verse of scripture. It's found in the book of Matthew, the 13th chapter, and verse 22. Jesus said, "He who receives seed among the thorns is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful." Now that's where I come up with this word, deceitful. Now what is the deceitfulness of riches? We begin to think of riches in ways that we should not. We begin to think that riches is the game. The one that gets the most riches wins. They are not being wise because they don't understand the power of investment. If they understood the power of investment, yes, they could wisely use the resources that God has made available to them and make a profit with their lives. However, all they're going to do is leave a lot of money behind for their children to fight over. I've seen families destroyed over the money that was left in an inheritance. That is not wise, my friend. That is not wise at all. So, the deceitfulness. Unless we properly understand money, it can deceive us and destroy us. And it's done that for multitudes of people. God help us to be as wise as this steward was, this manager. He understood that money has power. And if I use it, invest it properly, I can secure myself a good future. That's the deceitfulness of money. You think you can buy things that you cannot buy. For instance, we cannot buy salvation. It's not for sale, my friend. We can't buy salvation, but we can wisely invest in others. By investing in others, we are securing the needs within our lives. There's a good verse of scripture on this in Proverbs 23 and verse 5, where he says, "Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings, and they fly away like an eagle toward heaven. This is where the man said, if money talks, all it ever told me was goodbye. Now, we laugh at that, but the truth of it is, money is not eternal. We must invest it. If we don't invest it, then we're foolishly leaving it for someone else to fight over that. Don't be deceived by money. Understand that money is nothing more than a tool that can be used to advance other people's lives, improve other people's lives, encourage other people, to help others. And by investing in them and helping them, we're actually helping ourselves. I've discovered that it's impossible to give it all away, because when you encourage someone else, it encourages you. When you make someone else happy, it will put a smile on your face. And so this is what the man is doing. And it's where so many people misunderstand the story and think the man is cheating his master. No, he's not cheating. He is securing a future by himself by giving a cash discount. Now, here's the sixth point that I want to talk about. The sixth point is what I will call deposits. Deposits. That's what he's doing. He's making an investment or deposited something into their lives. Jesus talked a lot about money. In fact, he talked about money more than he talked about heaven. He talked about money more than he talked about hell. He talked about money more than any other subject. Listen to what he says in Matthew, the 6th chapter, verses 19 through 21. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth or rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. Now, what does he mean? Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. How are you going to do that? Are you going to make paper airplanes out of your money and fly it to the sky? No, that's not what he meant. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where thieves cannot steal it, where the elements cannot destroy it. Learn how to deposit it in people's lives in a way that it will make a difference. Jesus used the statement, make friends for yourself with unrighteous mammon. It simply means money, the resources God has given to us. Now, how can we do that? How can we use money to make friends? We do it by wisely investing in others' lives. I remember when I was studying these things and discovering this truth in Scripture that I was sharing with others. For instance, my daughter was a teenager at the time, and I was talking to her about this, and she's listening to me, but all of a sudden it began to register, and her eyes got big, and I'm so thankful I had a relationship where my girls could talk honestly with me. And boy, she came back and she said, well, Daddy, the way you're talking, you can buy friends. I said, no, technically you can't buy a friend, but it's by wisely investing in their life that they become your friend. And she came right back at me and said, well, I sure don't buy my friends. I said, I understand that. I know you don't buy them. I do. Oh, she really was upset with me by now. And she said, what do you mean you buy my friends? I said, just calm down now and think for just a moment. I want you to think. Anyone that can make you think is your friend. I said, do you remember when your friends come over to the house? And I was always happy to see them there. She had some wonderful friends. And I said, do you remember when they come to the house, they love the pizza? I've never seen young people that did not like pizza, and they love the pizza. I said, who do you think pays for the pizza? I do. I said, now, I'm not complaining one bit. I'm happy for them to come. I'm so glad they love the pizza. That's a part of my plan. I know where you are and what you're doing, and you're with good kids, and everything's going to be good. but I'm the one that is investing in their lives because I realize the power of investment. Now, in this passage of scripture that I read to you from Luke, the 16th chapter, there's a Greek word that I want to point out. And you understand these scriptures were originally written in the Greek language. It's translated in different ways in our Bibles, but they're trying to give us the meaning of this Greek word. It's the same Greek word in verse 4. The steward says, when I'm put out of the stewardship. In other words, when I lose my job, when I'm put out of this position. In verse 9, Jesus makes this statement. He says, when you fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. Now, the word fail there and the word put out is identically the same Greek word. What does he mean by this? He means there is going to come a point, a place in your life, you're going to lose your position. There's going to come a place in your life where this life is coming to an end. It doesn't matter whether it comes by something you did wrong or sickness, disease, death. Those things all cause us to leave this natural life and step into an eternal world. And when that happens, we're going to be in exactly the same spot this steward was in. Like the steward, we will give an account for the way that we used the resources God has given us. Every one of us is going to stand before God and give an account for our lives. What did you do with what I gave you? He's going to call us into account for our stewardship. This is what Paul meant when he said, it's called for stewards. They're going to be accountable for the way that they have used their stewardship. We will each give an account of that. Now, this is what Jesus is emphasizing. Jesus is emphasizing that if you wisely take the money and use it in a wise way, then you're going to be invited to come into an eternal reward. If we've wisely invested in people, they will become like a welcoming committee to greet us when we stand before God. This is one of the things that changed my life as a young man, a young minister. I was haunted by this question. What are you going to do when you stand before God? And I could picture myself standing alone before God, and I determined at that point in my life that's never going to happen. When I stand before God, I want to stand before Him with a multitude of people that I have invited to come with me. And Jesus said, they will welcome you into everlasting habitations. Do you see what he's emphasizing? He's saying that we can take the resources that God has given to us, invest it in other people's lives, and it not only blesses them, it blesses us. Not just right now, but eternally. See, my friend, to act like money is only temporary isn't smart. And that's what Jesus was talking about. That sinners, ungodly people in their generation are wiser than believers because they understand the power of investment. Now, if that is true for the sinner, like this steward, we don't know what his relationship was with God, but we know he made a wise decision by investing in these other men. And by investing in them, he secured a place for himself. In fact, according to the way the story is written, he didn't even lose his job. His master said, that was smart. That was a good decision. Now, I encourage you here because it's our attitude toward money that is going to determine much of our success. Our attitude toward money Is it temporary or is it eternal? It depends on what you do with it. It depends on how you invest it. If you invest it in other people's lives, if you become a blessing to others, then you're not only going to be blessed in this life, you will reap what you have sown eternally. That is wisdom. That's being wise. And so this is what Jesus is emphasizing. He's saying we must learn to think of investing money as ministry. I've seen so many people, they think because they're not the preacher, they're not the teacher, that they can't do anything for God. That's not true. Do you understand? Everything I'm doing is because people have invested in me. They have given me money for the clothes that I wear, the microphone I'm using, everything I have. It's because somebody believed in the message. That's ministry, my friend. They have taken that which is natural and turned it into something which is eternal. And so we must discover the people that we invest in are going to welcome us into our eternal reward. That's true for every one of us. And so I would encourage you, no matter what your situation may be in life, let's learn to wisely invest in souls. Let's do something that's going to make an eternal difference. Let's take something that's temporary as paper and turn it into an eternal reward. That's being a wise steward. So God bless you as you learn the power of investment.